Dallas Jenkins joins us. Hello, Dallas. How are you?
Good. I'm actually wanting to write down what you were just talking about. I'm like, this sounds great.
It is. I'm telling you, every school should have these things.
Yes.
We were, nobody wants to arm teachers. If you put your hand around the corner outside the door
yes.
and somebody's in the hallway, yes, kids will be hit with tear gas, but nobody will die.
Yeah.
And the police can take that guy down.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, I know. It sounds amazing. I'm
Yeah.
literally going, I'm going to get this for my home.
Yeah, they're great. How are you?
I'm good. Here's the thing. I'm looking at you, and you're a handsome guy, but
Yeah.
behind you is this big picture where you look phenomenal. And it's like, it's not good for you to put it right behind you, because then I'm like, wow, wait a second, there's a difference. Like you're like, again, you look good in person
that's
too.
Happy.
But that's you happy and rugged and handsome. And
right.
I'm like, wait a minute, there's a disconnect.
So tell me the story of the film Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I have to admit to you, I have not seen it. I've had others who have seen it and just rave about it. I've seen the trailer. Yeah. This is before you ever sent me anything or was going to become. I didn't know who it was, and I watched the trailer and I'm like, this looks fantastic. It looks
it's a movie
heartwarming and funny and all of it. And it's true.
And I really think you and I've talked before.
Yeah.
This is your kind of movie. I really think you'd love it. I read this book almost 20 years ago to my kids. My wife brought it home. And the first couple chapters, I'm reading it. Now, this book's been around for 50 years. I read it in public school, which is why I was so surprised by what happened when I read it again to my kids. First few chapters, I'm laughing. It's very witty, very nostalgic, just a terrific story. And I get to the last chapter, and I'm going, I didn't remember how Jesus-y this was. Like, I don't know how we got away with reading this in public school. I think it's because of the Christmas of it all. But I get to the last chapter.
You grew up in Oklahoma?
No. Illinois. So,
wow.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, the first... the story is these 6 herdman kids, the worst kids in the world, the ones that everyone is looking down on. And
this is, I just want to reemphasize.
No, it's not. It's
not true?
No.
Okay. Somebody told me it was a true story.
No.
Okay.
That's The Chosen.
Okay.
That's a true story. But this, she captures, it feels very real. It's very nostalgic. You remember the movie A Christmas Story?
Yeah.
Very much that feel to it. But in this case, these 6 kids, they're on the wrong side of the tracks. They're in poverty. They're mean. They're feral. And this church in this town don't want them around, and they hijack the town's Christmas pageant, and they take over the roles. They bully the other kids into saying, we're going to play these roles of Mary and Joseph. So, of course, everyone's scandalized and thinks it's going to be the worst Christmas pageant ever.
Because they're so un-Christ-like.
Right.
Yeah.
And so much like Mary and Joseph, like you can't have this awful girl playing the Mother Mary. Mary is beautiful and sweet and pretty and always looks clean. So they get to the performance of the pageant, and I don't want to give anything away. Of course, it is called the best Christmas pageant ever. So, but we get to that last chapter. I start crying so hard I can't see the pages. My kids are looking at me like, what is going on? And my wife, Amanda, goes, all right, give me the book. Let me read it. She starts reading. She starts crying. We're passing the book back and forth to each other while the other one recovers. The story is just so beautiful because it's because of these kids' poverty, because of their outsider status. They're actually closer to the heart of the true story than anyone else is. And so it ends up transforming this town, and the town, of course, so everyone is learning something new because these kids have never heard the story before. So they're asking all these questions.
Well, that's a better ending than I thought that was. I thought it was that the people that were helping the kids actually kind of changed the kids to have those kids transform the It's fantastic.
That's the thing. The church learns from these outsiders because we've taken for granted the Christmas story and the Christmas pageants, and we think of the sweet little nativity and the halo around everyone's head, and these kids are going, wait a minute, why wouldn't they let a pregnant woman into the inn? They had and they're asking all these questions that we take for granted. And so their perspective on the story is just closer to the truth of it because of their unique perspective and outsider status. And so it just was so beautiful. And there's a very common, a connective thread between that and The Chosen. My passion has always been, and we've talked about this before, I'm taking Jesus and the apostles down from stained glass windows, down from the pretty paintings that we've seen, and trying to give you the most accurate, direct portrayal of the humanity of these people and the true story, and that's what really stood out to me about the Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Now it's funny, it's witty, it's a traditional Christmas classic, but it's got this. It's probably the only of the movies that I would consider to be Christmas classics, and hopefully this becomes one of them, that really does put a spotlight on the true story of Jesus, but in a fun way.
It's amazing to me how snotty Christians can get, and maybe it's because they either didn't have that kind of experience or didn't need the redemption of Christ as much as others do. But Christ came for the ones that needed redemption. And we all need it, but needed the redemption really badly. Yeah. He was always around those kinds of
he's
kids.
saying, I came for the sick, not for the healthy.
Right.
And there's a line in the trailer and in the movie where the mom who's volunteering to do this pageant, everyone in the church is telling her, no, just get rid of the herdmans. We need to protect our sacred Christmas pageant. And at one point her daughter says, shouldn't we just get rid of them? And she says, I think that would contradict the whole point of the story.
Right.
And she says, the point of the story is that Jesus came for the herdmans as much as he came for you and me.
He was, everybody in that story was rejected and despised.
Yes. And there's also a moment where the herdmans walk out on stage and they're wearing the clothes they cobbled together at home to portray Mary and Joseph instead of the pretty costumes that were given to them by the church, right? And one of the girls in the choir who's against them goes, oh, look at them. They look like refugees. And the main character's looking at them. She goes, yeah, they do. And she's smiling going, this is what Mary and Joseph were. They were refugees. They were outsiders. So it's those kinds of moments that, unlike, again, some of these other Christmas classics that I love, Elf and Christmas Story and some of these Home Alone, they're all great. But this is a movie that has all those elements of humor and whatnot. But then there's these moments where you go, oh my goodness, that is the true story. Yeah. And I think to your point about Christians and those of us, especially here in America, I think sometimes it's not that we need redemption less. If anything, we need it more. But it's our awareness of our need, which sometimes goes away when you are living comfortably. Comfort can oftentimes cause you to take for granted who came for us not comfortable. Jesus was born into a stable, into a rough environment, on the run, hiding, outsiders, refugee, all that stuff. He came as a suffering servant, not as a conquering king. And we sometimes forget that.
Yeah. And it's remarkable to me, the best Christians, I put a few people like Billy Graham into other categories, but the best Christians that I have met, regular people, are those people usually from the Middle East or from China.
Oh yeah.
The ones who are just like, they have to know God because it's literally all that gets them through their day.
Oh yeah, I have a friend who runs this ministry called World Relief, and he said the church in Iran is cool, man.
Oh, I bet it is.
He's like they're like, we just had another great bombing, and they're like, what? Like, we had a bombing of one of our churches. We've never been closer to God. We've never been more desperate for Him. We've never. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I wish I could reach that level of passion and desperation without needing to be oppressed for it.
I went to Iraq years ago, and we were rescuing the Yazidis, and I was supposed to come pick them up, and then we were going to take them to some other country in Europe. And so when I get on the plane in New York, I'm told you may not be able to go see them because ISIS has just targeted the church at the time you're supposed to arrive, and they're having a final service. And so I'm on the plane wondering, I mean, what am I going to do when we get there? Right. And I get there and I said, so where are we meeting? And they're like, oh, at the church. And I said, did ISIS? And they said, no, they're not changing their plans. Yeah. And I said, okay. And then halfway through church, Russia said that they were going to start bombing that city, and
and I'm laughing just because it's like, this is not something we think about in America,
right? And I'm like, should we all maybe? Is there a shelter around here? They just kept singing and praying, and they said to me, "Oh, if we die, we're with God. Right now, we're fine. This is great. Yeah. It was amazing to see it.
Very humbling.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing I'm hoping, not only that it reaches me, but the viewer. When I do The Chosen, when I do a movie like Best Christmas Pageant Ever, it's, can we somehow remove these, sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's our sin, sometimes it's our art that gets us further away from that, what actually happened, and from that desperation and from that authenticity. And so, yes, in this case, it's wrapped in a fun PG-rated Christmas movie, but it's all the same intention of, man, I'd love to get that level of direct connection, so connected to Jesus that everything around you is irrelevant.
And this is so important this Christmas. I mean, I've been fighting Santa, and not in a bad, I didn't want to be that bad dad that's like, well, it's Santa. You know, I had fun as a kid with Santa, but it was a different culture. The culture said Christmas was about Jesus, not Santa, and Santa was just the fun part. And it is so important, and this is a fun way to bring your kids to the true story of Christmas. It's called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. It's in theaters now. Are you going to release it on video on demand before Christmas or not?
Just close to around Christmas.
Yeah, okay.
But I do hope that people go see it in theaters now.
Yeah,
we want it to last in theaters as long as possible. But yes, eventually, shortly before Christmas, it'll be available at home as well.
Yeah, I will tell you that it speaks a lot. I think this came out November 5th.
8th, yeah.
Yeah, 8th.
Right after the election.
Yeah, and you know, it is doing really well this early in the
New York
season.
Times liked it, Glenn. Like it's got a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow, wormhole.
I know there's a glitch in the matrix. But there seems to be this reaction of like, wow, this movie does take me to where Christmas should be about, and it's been a really cool experience to see the reaction. So
you hang on just for a second. I have to take a 1-minute break. We're with Dallas Jenkins, creator director of The Chosen and the new movie Must See, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. See it this week in theaters. It will be great to kick off the holiday and kind of also remind us, hey, God just played a big role in our lives here recently. We saw some miracles. Yes. Let's thank him. Let's thank him for that. I've never heard this before. The people that I know that saw it and that I trust, they said, Glenn, I saw the trailer, and I saw the trailer. I thought it was great and funny. I saw the trailer, and it seemed like a little holiday, Hallmark kind of thing. And they said, the movie is so much better than the trailer. And I've never heard anybody say that about any movie, ever.
Yeah, typically the trailer is the very best thing, the highlights of it.
Yeah,
but,
so I can't wait. I'm making reservations at the theater for Thanksgiving. After we have our Thanksgiving, we'll go to the theater that night and watch The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I have to get you to correct something. There was somebody I was talking to that goes to a Christian school here in Dallas, and they were talking about it with a Mormon friend who has a child in that school, and it came up that the Mormons distorted The Chosen because they were involved, and so you can't believe The Chosen scripturally. And I want you just to verify that you used the set, I think, for the first year from the Mormon Church, and all churches are involved. But I said to them, you need to go back into the classroom and say that Dallas Jenkins has a group of Bible scholars that look at it from all angles, and they argue, make sure it's exactly biblically correct.
Yes.
Correct?
100%. And number one, I'm a evangelical Protestant. I have the final say and control over every single piece of content in the show. It's not influenced by anybody. And as I'm sure you wouldn't be that surprised, but all of the Mormon friends or people that I have that I work with, or I have people of all backgrounds who and lack thereof. I mean, half my cast and crew aren't believers. But there hasn't been any arguments. None of them have said, well, we wish you would do this instead and be more Mormon in your portrayal of Jesus. Like, it's the Gospels. It's the stories of Jesus.
It's pretty cut and dry.
We don't, the arguments we have about Jesus are based on things that took place after he was here or before he was here on earth. It is astonishing, some of the rumors. You use a set that's owned by the church. It's not like they said, okay, now if you're going to use our set, now you have to
put this in.
You have to Mormon this up.
Yeah.
Because this set doesn't come free.
Yeah.
So no, it's
that was the first time I've ever had to defend my Christian friend against like the Mormons. It was weird.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful and a great relationship with everyone who's involved.
Thank you so much for everything that you do.